Okay, hi guys. Now, we are going to do a painting tutorial for this illustration. Now, what I have here is a line work that I've done. Um, I just call it's a girl character, as you can see, riding on some big creature, which is actually some chameleon mixed with a snail. Okay, so it's just some fantasy character. And so how did I actually design this character? It's relatively simple. I know that you guys have been, probably a lot of you are doing manga and love doing manga. That's why I created this tutorial, because I felt that if you want to do manga, then might as well learn to probably try and do a better job at it. um, so how did I design these characters? Relatively simple. I did not take a lot of time trying to think about what pose I wanted. I had an idea of a kind of pose I wanted. So what I did was I went onto Pinterest, and I would click on, actually what I would do is usually I would search for character action poses. I think I was looking for one just now. um, think, let me check. So character action poses. um, so I think I've said this a lot of times to you guys during class, that you need to go and get a Pinterest account if you don't already have one. And I looked through a lot of stuff like this, yeah. And when you just type character action poses, there are so much that you can choose from. Yeah, different types of characters, male, female, um, different styles. Some that look more like Marvel or DC, some that look more like manga and anime, some that are different style altogether. You have even photographs to research from. So by all means, please use them, yeah, because everything has been done for you with these images. Okay, so I do not see why you need to trouble yourself by trying to figure out the anatomy and get it wrong. All right, trying to take a piece of photograph or an illustration from someone else and trying to draw over it does not make you a cheat. Yeah, what you are actually doing, think about it as studying. Because what you're actually doing when you trace over someone's picture, you will get, and the more often you do it, the more attuned your mind will be to how you draw it. Yeah, to drawing body and the curves of the legs or the arms. So you get better at it until at one point of time you probably know it so well that you probably don't need to actually use references anymore, and that's how you develop. Okay, not by trying to figure it out on your own, and just without any references, thinking that using references is a cheat. So if you look at this illustration that I have, right? Okay, this is my sketch, this blue pencil line I have. Okay, I bump up the opacity again. This is my sketch. Obviously the creature is actually I didn't have a reference for that because you don't see much of it, but her pose definitely was taken from somewhere. I drew her head separately with reference from a few different characters, manga characters. I wanted some curls in her hair because to reflect the curl in the chameleon's tail behind, because in terms of unity or unification of design, there should be repetitive motifs like this to unify the picture. But yeah, I want to show you that actually I trace it off this, which actually came from here. So when I looked for research, I knew a kind of pose, it was something like this, and then I found this one. And it wasn't completely exactly what I wanted. So, well, I didn't use her head, so I cropped her head off, and I changed her arm because I didn't want her arm to be kind of flat, right? So I just modified that in my sketch to be kind of like a fist, so that she looks like she's holding onto a string, and in my final line work she is holding onto a string. So that's how you use research. You can mix and match different body parts, but make sure that they correspond to each other when you pick them lah. Okay, so now what we will do for this illustration is to keep the outline. Compared to what I previously taught you guys, is to paint and gradually kind of fade the outline out until there is no more outline. This one, we will keep the outline. Okay? Now, but one thing about the outline now, I was sketching this and I have to say that there is something that I wasn't quite satisfied with myself. And it has to do with, I asked this in class, and a student was able to tell me that it's actually the line thickness. Now, you have to be very observant when you are actually doing illustrations like this and keeping the line. Notice that the line behind her, which is the tail of the chameleon, is thicker than the lines that are on her. Now that poses an issue for me because she is nearer to me as a viewer than the tail. Hence, in terms of the principles of the quality of line, her lines should be thicker than the tail, or rather the tail should be thinner than the lines on her, right? The chameleon is quite accurate, the head, because it is in the foreground, right? But his tail is behind her, so that should be thinner. So if I had a choice to actually redraw, I would probably redraw the tail again. But due to time constraints, we shall just use this one first, okay? Now, very quickly, what I would like to do is actually set the lighting. Now, before you start drawing anything or start painting, you first need to know where the lighting is from. So what I'm going to do is the background layer, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to choose a very dark background, something like a dark blue, and fill that. So I just alternate delete and fill that with dark blue. And I'm going to just take a brush, a soft brush here, increase the shape dynamics, pen pressure, yes, and I'm going to increase the size a little bit more because it's a bit too small. What I'm doing is I'm going to try and mark out the lighting, yeah. So I want some yellow light coming from the top. So I'm going to just lower the opacity slightly because I just want to build up the lighting gradually. So I'm just going to just dot a few bits of yellow color on the top, right? Just to kind of denote that there is some source of light coming from here. But at the same time, I'm going to create a bounce light here, which is a cooler color like a blue. In fact, maybe an aquamarine color. So I'm going to do that there. Okay, so now I have two sources of light which will cause this object that I have to be more three-dimensional, because you will have a bit of light here on this side of the object and then a little bit of light on a lot of more light on this side. Yeah, so I will show you how we're going to paint that afterwards. I'm picking the blue and just kind of decreasing it a bit because I don't want so much of this light blue. Okay, maybe go a bit dark blue behind so that I can create a bit of contrast. Okay, a darker background with a brighter foreground will bring the foreground even closer to you. Okay, so just darkening it a bit more now. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for the background for now, right? In this tutorial, we're not going to paint the whole character. We are just going to paint in detail the eyes, the face, and the hair, and maybe a bit of the fur. I will teach you how to paint fur. Okay, so I'm gonna make first I'm gonna make a layer for the face. Okay, so I'm gonna create one layer, new layer, and call this the face. Now, how I'm gonna make a selection for the face, or how I'm gonna paint the face, is not actually using a brush. Okay, for those of you guys who do not know how selection tool works, this is how it works. You've got tool on top here, yeah, you've got squares, and you've got, of course, circles, right? And then you have the lasso tool, which you use you use your Wacom to create organic shapes. And then the other one is a polygonal lasso tool, which is basically you have to tap, 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 tap to create shapes. Yeah. So you would like to create a shape to kind of fill up her face, right? But the polygonal lasso will kind of give you a very boxy shape, whereas this lasso tool might be more effective, but it's going to be very tedious because you really need to control your hand to go around the line. Alright, so I'm not going to use either of these tools. What I'm going to use is this pen tool here. This pen tool works the same way as the pen tool in After Effects and the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator. So how am I going to do it? Is I'm going to go here and just tap, tap, tap. This is the ear, by the way. Tap, tap, go behind and around the face. Yeah, around the face here. Okay, and up the ear. Oops. If you make a mistake, it's okay, you can still continue. And I'm not going to go down this hair because the hair layer will be on top, so it will cover essentially. So I'm just going to go across like that because I want to create another layer for the hair on top, so it doesn't really matter. But this part I'm going to correct. Now, how do you make an amendment here? You go here to the direct selection tool. Yeah, use this one. It might be path selection at first, but you just hold down this button and go to select direct selection tool, and then you can adjust the nodes like you do in Illustrator. See? Yeah, I can adjust this and yeah. Okay, so once I'm happy with the shape, I'm just going to correct some of these paths to make it more closer to the line. There's a bit of a problem here, so I'm going to just fix that as well. Okay, so I have this already. What I'm going to do next, how I'm going to make it a path like these selection tools. You go to Path tab, right? You see the word path actually shows you the little bit of area, which is this area that you've selected. If you zoom out, this bit corresponds to this tiny bit here. So what you're going to do is you have to go all the way down here on the Path tab. Do you see this third button with the dotted line, the dotted circle? Now load path as selection, that's what it is. Click that and you have turned your path into a shape, a selection shape. And this is where you go to your face layer and fill it with a skin color. I suggest probably something quite light. Yeah. Skin tone, of course, probably a bit tan because she's probably living in the jungle and all that, so she's probably a bit tan, a bit like Mononoke, right? So we fill that up with a color. Yeah, okay. So you've done that and that's good. So let's now try and do the same thing for the hair. Okay, so what we're going to do is create a new layer and call it hair. And this time again we're going to go do this, repeat the same process, but this time you might need to be a bit more accurate. There's a lot to cover actually, so I'm just going to speed this process up. Okay, okay, so now I've completed the whole loop, but you've noticed that the shape I've made is not really complete. Like I didn't go all the way following the line. It's because as long as I get some of the shape, I can fill that up later on with a brush. And this is, the hair is a pretty organic shape, so I can get away with a little bit of irregularities. Okay, so I'm gonna just select this. Okay, and gonna move this here, just some of it. I think the rest is quite alright. This part maybe. Okay, so I'm going to just do the same thing now. Go to path, select that, and I'm going to choose, like, I want her hair to be kind of a flaming orange color. Yeah, so I'm going to hold down alternate key, press delete. Probably a bit too bright. Yeah. Okay. No, just want it a bit more red. Okay, yeah, so this is the color I want. I'm going to press B and choose a hard brush, because this is where I go in to fill the gaps. Yeah, so I choose this kind of brush, see, and this is where I go in and just fill the gaps. Okay, make sure your opacity is at 100, your brush opacity is at 100. Okay, and then you just kind of fill in the gaps. Press E to clean up if you want it to be really just following the line. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna speed up this process as well. Okay, so I've just finished coloring her hair. Yep, I'm quite happy with it. Actually, this part, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use magic wand. It's another way of selection. You go to line work and you just tap that, basically selecting that area. You go back to the hair layer and delete, so you don't want that bit. Okay, so there's a hole there. Okay, alright, so I'm quite happy with what I have. Well, probably this part needs some erasing, so let's do that. Clean up the ears, but yeah, good enough. Okay, let's move on to going down to the face layer and creating a new layer called the eyes. Okay, so we have the eyes, which we will do right now. Now, how am I going to do selection for the eyes? They are kind of spherical. In fact, you know what? I'm going to open a file. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm gonna look at one of these illustrations. Okay, so let's check out how they. Oh, this is crazy. There's a lot of sparkles. I think this is probably a little bit more realistic. Maybe let's look at some others. This one would be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I like this eye, so I'm gonna just use this and as a reference. I'm just select that. Okay, copy, go back to my file, and on the eye layer paste it there. Okay, so that it's my reference. Yeah, so I know how to paint anime eyes. Okay, so well, at least a similar look, not exactly, but at least similar. So I noticed that they like to put the sparkle, the white part, on top. So I think it's not very good that my line work kind of just punched a hole through the pupil. So I'm going to patch that up. Yeah, and I think you should do the same. And you notice that there's not much black inside the eye. So I'm going to change the color of this eye black as well. Okay, so I'm going to just select black first and just patch up those two holes that I made. And then I want her eyes to be green, so I'm going to choose dark green. So I'm going to lock the alpha for the line work and choose like a dark green and color that in. Okay, next I'm going to do a selection for the eye. Alright, I want to fill the color here. So I'm going to go to the eye layer again, create a circle. And how am I going to adjust this circle to fit this? Yeah, I'm going to go to select, transform selection. Once I do that, I can actually change my selection to form kind of the shape that I want, roughly. Okay, compress that and press enter once you're done. Okay, and fill this with a color that you would like. I kind of like this green. Yeah, this bright green. Alright, so I'm gonna Control D to deselect and just rub off the excess that I don't need outside her eye. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Oh, something close to her eye. Select, transform selection. Okay. And then get as close as you can to the shape, and then press enter and fill. Alright, Control D, E to erase, and there you go. So I've got her green eyes, right? So if you observe the eyes right now, they are darker on top, and this is bright thing like a illumination on the bottom of the eye. So we want to do the same thing for her eyes as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock the alpha first, get a soft brush for this, I think, and choose the multiply mode. Alright, soft brush, multiply mode, and lower the opacity of your brush so that you can be very gentle with the coloring. Yeah, so you've got a little bit like that, I think should be sufficient, because you don't want to go too dark to the extent you can't differentiate the eye's black center from the green. In fact, I think I might go back to the line work and choose even darker green. Yeah, okay. And then you have the eyes, which I'm quite satisfied with actually. And choose a gray just to darken this top slightly, and I'm going to brighten the bottom bit. So how I'm going to do that is just using going to brush and hardening it slightly. Yeah, it's quite soft right now. I'm going to harden it slightly like this and choose color dodge, and I've chosen like a pale grayish green. Oops, too much. I'm going to lower it even more so that it's more gradual. Yeah, okay, so I've got that and that, and then I'm going to go down. Just now I was here, I'm going to go down slightly and just do one more time here. Okay, yeah, okay. So next what I'm gonna do is I noticed that there's this black around the eye, so I'm gonna get this green and make my brush a little smaller and just go around. Oh, sorry, multiply. In fact, no, just use normal and just go around the eye like that. Yeah. Because if you notice your pupil, there is this black rim that goes around the eye. I think that's what they're trying to do. Okay, and with this same brush, probably lower the opacity. What you can do is add a little bit of, yeah, those details. Now don't have it go around the eye like a railroad track, yeah, with even spacing and even lengths. Don't do that, because your eye is not like that. Okay, so what you need to do is just randomize it a bit, some short ones, give it some space, some long ones. Okay, same with the other side. Okay, then probably a dark one, and I think we're quite done. Okay, yeah, alright, so we are done with that. Now what's the next thing that we can do is do the eye white behind. So that we're going to use a pen tool, which I think is a bit faster. So this is, I'm going to rename, instead of eyes, I'm going to rename this as pupils, and underneath the pupil layer I'm going to create a new file, a new layer called eye white. And with that I'm going to use my selection tool and create the shape of her eye. Okay, create the shape of her eye one side, and then the other side as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just adjust this because I think it's too far in, maybe, yeah. And done. Once you're happy with the shape, go to path again. We are doing the same thing, making, oops, sorry, actually we need to make two of them, paths. So select both and click path, layer, and fill it with, of course, white color. Alright, and actually I think previously I had a very nice piece of research that kind of showed you how to color the white bit, but it shows that, you see, there's this white bit and there's coloration there. So I'm going to choose a gray color and a semi-hard brush, meaning I'm going to put it halfway here, 50% hard, and lock this and kind of just darken the top bit, because you know she has her eyebrow here which is casting a shadow, and in fact she has her hair and all that casting a shadow over her eyes, right? So you want to create that illusion, yeah? So you see the eye white and the eye pupil corresponds to each other. Okay, so you've got that. Great. Okay, what you can do next is the finishing touch, which is the pupil, the sparkles in the eye. So for that you actually have to create a layer above the line work and do this eye sparkles, all this eye sparkles. And I can use this same semi-hard brush probably. Well, if you want to create a hard brush, you can, and shrink it down a bit. I'm going to choose white, of course, because the sparkle should be white. Now again, you see, this is where this background comes to play. This is yellow and here is blue, so the sparkle by right should be on this side. So I'm going to put a dash here. Well, it's not thick enough. Oops, sorry. I'm going to choose a dash here and then another dash here. Okay, yeah. And then now, why did I make an oval shape and not like a big round circle? It's because her pupil is oval, right? So therefore this should be slightly to accentuate the shape, yeah. So I'm going to do another one here, slightly smaller. Probably I'm going to have it lower in opacity, smaller, yeah, so that's kind of see-through slightly, and that should be it. Yeah, you're quite close. Now what you can do is add a smaller one on the bottom, yeah, and that's good. Now you can go back to the eye white and kind of make like this reflection has an effect on the pupil behind. So choose a soft brush, right? Color dodge, choose, let's say, a yellow color, which is the color of the light, and use the brush size and just probably sorry, not eye white, pupils, and just dab here a little bit. Oops, a bit too strong, so let's lower the opacity. Dab here a little bit. Okay, so you can see that it's, this reflection is almost as if it's affecting this area here. Okay, so I think it's quite okay. You've completed the eyes. I think it's quite sufficient. If you want to do a few more dots like this sample here, which has a lot of like different dots, then you can. Okay, but I don't want to. Well, maybe just maybe you can do a bit more. Won't harm to actually add a few more sparkles here. Yeah. Just make sure when you're making a sparkle, it has to be on both sides. If not, it look really weird. Yeah. If you observe her eye, one dot here, one dot here, one dot here, one dot here, a little reflective thing here, a little reflective thing there. It has to correspond. Okay, you can't have like 5 dots all over the place here and this one is completely different. All right, so it will look like the eyes are not balanced. Okay, so once you're done with that, now let's try and do the hair. Okay, now how do I usually paint hair? I've got a very good piece of research that I found the other day. I'm not sure if I still have it. I hope I do. of anime actually. I'm not sure if I actually trashed it as well. Okay. Well, I'm trying to show you a piece of illustration that had this exact lighting that I wanted. Let's try and search it out for a bit. Okay. Aha, there it is. Oh my gosh, I've never looked at so much manga in my life. I have no idea how you guys do it. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna save this image. Okay, so why did I choose that specific image? Because I like the lighting on this one, and because it's exactly the color that we want. So I'm gonna copy her and paste her in the hair layer. Okay, just put this one side. Alright, now why is this exactly what I want? Now I'm going to just flip this image, edit, transform, flip. Okay, because if you look at this, her hair is exactly the color that I want. Yeah, I mean, not the brown, but the lighting. She has yellow light coming from the top and blue light on the bottom, so it's great reference as to how I'm going to paint her hair. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start. Yeah, so I'm going to lock this down. Now how I'm going to paint, if you observe my brush, I'm going to start with I'm going to create first the shadows. I have flat colors, and how I usually sculpt forms is I'm going to create shadows first. Okay, and I usually like to use for something organic like this, something like hair, I like something like this kind of brush. Alright, and if you paint, yeah, you might think that it looks really gritty, but it's actually quite smooth. Okay, so how I'm going to paint is I'm going to select this red, make sure that it's a normal multiply mode, normal mode, sorry, not multiply, increase it to increase it to 100. Okay, and I'm going to just lower the darkness slightly so that it's a slightly darker color. Okay, so yeah, now how I'm going to do this is treat this object like a sphere, right? So basically, for example, like this is the easiest thing to paint for now. You know that in terms of concept of lighting a sphere or painting a sphere, if the light is sitting here, this is where the main lighting will hit, and because the blue light is coming from here, so the bounce light will be here. And where's the darkest area of the shadow? Over here. Okay, so I'm going to just go back a few steps. Alright, and paint this. Yeah. Now observe that my brush that I'm using is something that looks like this. Okay, I'm going to hit this function here which says tablet pressure controls opacity, meaning how hard I press my pen sorry, is how dark it will be. If I really am very gentle with my webcam, the opacity will be very, very light. Okay, so I'm going to increase the brush size and just kind of give it a brush upward just to create the form. Okay, see, already you can see that the form is coming, and I'm brushing in the kind of the flow of how I want the hair to be. Okay, so it's like bunded up like that, like a spiral, right? So I'm going to just go like in this direction. Then for the rest of the hair, I know that the shadow is going to be on this side, so I'm just going to put the shadow there. Okay, oops, make sure you're not painting on the wrong layer. So I'm going to create shadows on top. Now you see I'm going to switch back and forth. I will always hold down my alternate key to pick the original color just to touch up, and then go back to the shadow color, pick the shadow color, and then start painting again. So I'm always going back and forth, picking the red and then touching it, picking the shadow and then blending it in, Yeah, but I do it all with a hard brush. I would never, very rarely would I use a soft brush to paint. If you look at illustrations, this is one thing that you need to understand. Um, Soft brushes do not make good blending. All right. When you are actually painting, for example, oil paints in real life, there is no such brush as a soft brush, but yet they are able to do all those blends. It's because of their control of the brush. Yeah. So if you look, for example, I found a really good example, which is Princess Mononoke here. Now it looks like such a even blend, but if you actually draw very closely, look at the fur. It's made out of very solid shapes. Yeah, you can see the shape of the brush strokes. They are very solid shapes. Okay. Even the reflection on her nose, that little dot there, is a very solid dot. Right. Look at this arm, which is supposed to be blending. It's a solid, you can see the brush strokes in it. Okay. So that's what I mean. You should use a solid brush to blend. Do not use a feathered brush to blend, because it will look, your artwork will look relatively weak if you use a feathered brush like this to keep blending. Okay, because you will never get good form. So use a solid brush. It could be something like this, or even something like this brush here. It's solid, right? I'm talking of solid as in the edges are really hard. So it's a hard edge brush. Okay, so now I've switched to the one on the bottom, and still the same effect. Okay, so I'm going to use this to sculpt the shape of the hair. See, even with just the shadow layer itself, you can still start seeing the form come out. So I'm going to paint this in because it's the back of the hair. Okay, I'm going to darken it slightly and probably just create a little bit more shadow, right? If I feel that it's getting too dark, then I just simply select a lighter red and go back and create that sort of rhythm, right? Oops. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep sculpting. Okay, and yeah, okay, I think that's quite enough for the form. Okay, yeah, so I've set the base of the hair. You see it has some form right now. Now I'm going to put the lighting actually. So we have yellow light on this side, and look at how this artist has painted it. See, it's really solid shapes. When I talk about solid shapes, I'm talking about this. You see, you can never get a let me zoom in. This line, these type of lines here, if you use a feathered brush all the time, yeah. But you can get effects like this with the hard brush. But if you switch the opacity and play around with it, and play around with this, you can get tones like this even by using a brush that is hard edged. Okay, yeah, so you check it out. I've been using a hard brush, but yet it seems very well blended, doesn't it? Yeah, it doesn't look chunky or hard. You can even blend it slightly further, but you always use a hard brush, never a feathered brush. Okay, so now I'm going to do the highlights. As you can see, the highlights is yellow, so I'm going to just pick this yellow here, and I'm going to lower the opacity because I don't want it to be a chunk of yellow like that. Well, not yet, though I think that the maximum highlight of her hair might be this yellow, but I don't want that yet. Okay, so I'm going to build towards that. I'm going to lower the opacity, so because I'm not very confident of how I want the lighting of the hair to be, so I'm going to just paint that. Yeah, so I know that the light is coming from here, so this part of the hair will get it. This part, for example, this whole piece of hair, you can even subdivide it some more just by creating another line of shadow, making another highlight, and then breaking it with the shadow. You can even create another sub highlight, then another shadow. So you can keep on detailing like that. Okay, so I'm gonna select again, highlight on top, yeah, and that. Okay, now I think quite enough of the highlights already, yeah. And then now the blue part, yeah, because we have some sort of blue light down here, so we're going to pick this blue and just well, it's a bit too dark, I feel, probably this blue. So what you can do is brighten it. Just choose that's what you can do with the HSB. See, I can pick this blue. If it's too dark, I can increase the brightness, lower the saturation, and get a nice consistent blue with the lighting. Okay, so there you go. Because I'm looking at, you see the way her hair is being litted, yeah, so probably a bit here as well, because you will have some parts where the light from there meets the light from there, so this part is how it looks like, yeah. Okay, probably a bit here, and this sphere here, remember this bounce light, so you have a bit of the blue there, probably a bit more here. Now at this point of time, you just zoom out and have a look. The form and the sculpt of the hair is already there, right? So now I'd like to introduce this thing to you, this which is very useful. What you can do is go to Window, Arrange, and open New Window for Aramaya, which is the file name. Okay, what you do is it will appear as another window. Pluck it out and put it on the side, and just kind of collapse it down, and keep this window here all the time. Okay, because why? Because you guys are going to be zooming in and out a lot, right? And sometimes you might tend to keep detailing it, correct, but not making much of an effect here. What is most important in the end of the day is what you see here, that this whole visual reads. You see, I made a line here, but is it making any difference here? Just a small speck, and it doesn't really matter. So you can probably zoom all the way in here and, you know, fuss with every single strand of hair, but if it's not making much difference here, then you're wasting your time completely. Okay, it's like, look, we go back to this Mononoke thing, right? If you zoom into this fur, it looks like utter nonsense, right? This area here, just look at this area here, okay? But if you zoom out, all together it looks great, right? So you don't really need to fuss over details like that. That's not the way to paint, yeah? Because if you're going to detailize even right down to this level, you will find yourself suffering, because then you will realize, if I don't detailize everything, it will look really weird, right? Because you have this one area that has so much details and the rest is all just kind of like blah, right? So you need to make sure that whatever it is you mark at this point makes an effect here, okay? As in it's worth seeing here, okay? So I'm just going to detailize it a little bit more. Let's just look at this part, and I'm just going to make it slightly more detailed. But at the same time, every time I'm doing something here, I always check here, you see? Just made this dark stroke, it seems to have made a mark there, so okay. Paint this side. Alright. Yeah, see? So if I have too dark here, this means that this is a bulge here, right? It's kind of like going down and up and down. So I'm going to just pick this white here and go on top. See? Immediately you see this three-dimensional form here, right? But here, up close, it looks like crap, right? It's like, what is it? It looks like a huge giant croissant, but up here, you see, it makes sense, right? It's looking like a hairbun. Okay, in fact, you may think that the highlight looks like crap here, but it looks fine here. So this is what matters, you see. Yeah. So don't fuss over details and keep zooming in and, you know, forget how the bigger picture looks like. That's very, very important. Okay. So okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna I think I'm gonna break the highlight up a little bit, okay, because I feel that it's a bit too fuzzy. So I'm gonna break it up a little bit so that there's a little bit of that detail going on. Select this yellow, maybe a brighter version of it, increase and give it some contrast, right? You want some streaks to come in, yeah. See? Okay. Okay. So yeah, see? Up close it doesn't look like much, but here it's really not bad. Okay? Okay, so done with that, and to be honest, I'm quite satisfied with it already. Okay, so yeah, that hairband is done. It doesn't look done here, of course it never look done because it's not photograph, it's a painting, right? But it looks good enough there, so I'm gonna just move on to this part. Okay, so I'm just gonna use this, let's say I'm gonna do this portion because it has a wider area to work with. So I'm gonna just brush this and create probably some smaller strokes. Yeah, see? Okay, lower so that I can get some okay. So I've just basically taken the form, and because of this shadow I've hacked it in two. Yeah. Okay, see, just with this few lines you get this kind of detail, right? Yeah, if you add these few lines, yeah, you get that kind of detail. Yeah. You might want to brighten it a bit just to get some higher contrast highlights. Break it up a bit with a bit of the orange. Okay. Okay, so I think you get the idea of how to paint. You see, I've been using a solid hard brush all the time. I've been only using one brush, right? Well, actually two, this one and this one. But I could have just used this hard brush anyway. And that's how I usually paint. Okay, you can use this, you can use this. No need for fancy brushes. I mean, you've got brushes that look like this, which does give you a nice watercolor thing, but that's usually I would use it like at the end, you know, where it really matters, and you know, I have kind of something like that, and it has that texture quality, so color dodge it. Oops, too much. Yeah, so I will do that at the end, but not when I'm kind of sculpting the form. So you have to look at yourself as if you're like an actual traditional artist using oil paint, because that's how all painters do. They set a base color, then they sculpt it with shadow, then they slowly detailize it. Okay, that's how you build form. Okay, so I'm not done with the hair. Obviously you can continue. The face on the other hand, now the face, because of the nature of, well, anime, I must say that the face is an area that is an exception that you do use a feathered brush. Okay, and so in this case, when we go to brush, because there's actually not much I'm gonna do on the face. Their faces are all quite one tone, right? So I'm just gonna go here, use a very soft brush, and I'm gonna use I'm gonna pick an orange color. Yeah, and choose multiply. Okay, the only thing I'm going to do is one stroke here. I'm going to treat her face as a sphere, like this sphere. So there's going to be a main light and going to be a bounce light. Yeah, so with her face, I'm just going to lock down the alpha. Just, oops, that's too much. So I'm going to lower the opacity and just kind of go here slightly. Okay, yeah, that's about it. Okay, and then I'm gonna lessen the size of the brush and pick the blue from here and go color dodge, and then create that bounce light. Yeah, probably on top of her eye here as well, because the eye is gonna hit this part, right? And for the little nose as well, color dodge, increase it slightly. Well, I'm not going to do that yet because I noticed with anime as well, they like to rosy up the nose and cheeks. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose overlay, choose red, and just give her slightly rosy cheeks. Okay, so cheeks here. Oops, a bit much. Lower to 19. Yeah, a bit here and a little bit there, and on the tip of the nose. That's it. Yeah, good enough. Yeah, you look here. Okay, fine, good to go. Color dodge, choose the blue again, and we're gonna create the highlight for the nose. Zoom in, because it's quite a delicate process. When I'm doing it here, I look here. Yeah, just okay, good. Her lips maybe a little bit. Yeah, the top. Okay, so that creates some form of three-dimensionality as well. Yeah. See? Yeah, I just kind of just lighten this part a bit. You can see, wow. Okay. All right, so that's good enough. Yeah. Probably the ear. And maybe here. Then I'm gonna do the lighting because the yellow from this side, so color dodge on this side. Yeah, so lower the opacity because you don't want it to suddenly just brighten her face like that. So just go a bit here and oops, a bit much. History. Go over here, the face, and probably this side of the nose, just to give it the three-dimensionality. It's not looking very nice. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, see, just nice. I'm not gonna do anything more. Okay. Yeah. Now, what other things can I do with her face? Now look at this. She's got an overcast on her face, right? So you want the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the hair layer actually. And so I've got two. Yeah, so I've got one layer and two layer. I'm going to take this hair copy, the new layer, and put it above the face layer. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill this with probably like a light orange tone or a grayish tone, something like this, and press alternate delete to fill it, Control T to transform it so that it creates a kind of a cast shadow. Alright, you want to see the instant effect. Before you transform it, change it to multiply, Control T, and voila, see what I'm trying to achieve there? Okay, now I feel that the hair is coming from this place, so I'm gonna just reposition so that it's coming from here. Right? Then just press enter and you're done. But you want to delete the excess, you can just hold down the control key, select on the face area so that this is created. Control Shift I to select whatever is outside and delete. Okay, yeah, so I repeat the process. Hold down Control control key, click on the face, this box here next to the word face, and that will select the alpha of the face. So you want to delete whatever is outside, right? You want to keep the one inside. Control Shift I and delete. Okay, and now this part is nearer to the skin than this part, so I'm going to blur this part here with this tool called the blur tool. This water drop here, blur tool. Okay, so let me just go closer a little bit. Just I'm gonna unlock the alpha, sorry, and just gonna give it a blur over here. So this is sharper here, it's blurrer here. So obviously if this part is nearer to the skin surface, this will blur as well. This will be darker, so I'm gonna lock the alpha, use my brush, multiply, and just slightly darken that area. Yeah. Okay, so there's that three-dimensional form. You're creating cast shadows and stuff already on the face. So look at this. Yeah, reading well. Okay. Alright, so go back to the face. I think what we can afford to do is maybe the teeth. Change it back to normal. Choose a white color. Increase the opacity again. Well, I think maybe a bit of gray first, and then choose the white so that it looks like, yeah, the teeth has a cast shadow. Now the tongue would of course be a slight pinkish color. Oh, a bit too pink. Yeah, that's okay. Color dodge. Oops, too much. Lower the opacity, soften this. Okay, so you're done with the face. Okay, now I promised to add a little bit more on the hair. Oops, sorry, this was painted on the same layer, so I'm gonna the fur, so I'm gonna delete this because I want to paint this area and show you how to do it. Now for something like this, I think what we can do is to make it more organized. Yeah guys, sorry, let's create a folder. Let's create a folder and call this face. Okay, and put all of that in. Yeah. Now, before I decide, I think at this point of time it'd be important to note, and my bad, I think what you would usually like to do is I suggest that you color everything else very roughly. Okay, you don't need to be very neat, but just very roughly kind of create another layer, say for the body. Okay, and maybe I'm thinking that her costume would be a bit brown, so I'm gonna make it a hard brush, increase the size, make sure it's normal, and yeah, I'm gonna just give her costume a bit of a color. Okay, okay, the bands as well. Yeah, you look at the way I'm doing it. I'm just kind of just roughing it out, just plotting out some color. I'm obviously going to select her skin color to place where the skin is, right? A tie is here. Yeah, you don't need to go kind of like around the shape yet, because the purpose of actually blotting this color out is so that you know how the whole illustration looks like in the end in terms of the color scheme, and that needs to be part of your planning. For these knee pads, maybe I'm gonna just try a bit of a dark green if it works. It looks like it works. Yeah. Maybe her bangles could be green as well. I think the leathery parts, I might make it slightly dark brown. Yeah, like that color. So you see, I'm just kind of just testing out colors here right now, and seeing what works. Okay, I know that the creature is going to be green, the chameleon, so I'm just going to call this the creature mount. And the creature mount will be green as a chameleon, so it's a big ass chameleon. So I'm just gonna color that in. Okay. Okay. With a huge brush. The legs here and the tail as well. Yeah. And actually the tail end, I'm going to just lower the value, the saturation a bit, because this part of the tail is further away from the body, so it has to desaturate in terms of color, right? And this part here would be slightly darker, so yeah, because it's in the foreground, so you can just do a bit of a sculpt, just do a basic sculpt, and you can even just do a bit of a highlight. Blue, oops, it's a bit too, okay. Okay, and then the middle part, the shell, unlock the alpha. Oops, it's a bit too yellow actually. I want it slightly brown. Okay, so I've kind of planned, I'm looking at this illustration, I'm quite happy with the color scheme I have, because just by doing this, I can see that her face is still in focus, not because of the detail, but because of the color, right? Her head is all full of this red hair, and it's really drawing attention. It's contrasting against the every other color. It's the warmest color, it's the most saturated color, but at the same time this red is a complementary color to green, so it matches very well. Okay, her skin tone and everything else brown is kind of a neutral color, which works well, so I'm quite satisfied with the color. Maybe the background, I might not use such a saturated blue. I might slightly desaturate it and make it more contrasting, probably, so that she comes out she's even more obvious. Okay, so that's my color scheme. So at some point I would do this, I would actually kind of just rough out the colors to make sure that it works color wise, because if it doesn't work color wise, you have too much colors going on, the illustration doesn't work as well. Okay, so I think at this point of time I will just stop this tutorial right now, because I think it's enough for you guys to handle. I will make this second part of the tutorial for the fur a second video. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Hope you are able to catch up and enjoy doing your work.